How to find and train VAs the easy ways. Guys, this is Rick Ginn, and in today's video, not only am I going to show you how to find them and train them, I'm going to teach you the two different types of VAs that you need to use for your business. And if you stay to the end, I'm going to share with the tools you can use to help with your VAs. And then I'm going to share the number one issue why most wholesalers fail with working with VAs. But before I get into it, do me a favor, make sure you smash that like button. You hit that subscribe notification button to continue to receive the best wholesaling information up to date. So what is a VA? A VA is just an acronym for virtual assistants. And VAs really hit the market specifically for wholesaling around 2010 to 2012. And it was a new category and it was exciting because now we can take our business worldwide. And specifically, most of it started over in the Philippines and it was wonderful. They were dirt cheap. They did a ton of work. And honestly, it was incredible. And now we transgress to 2023. The whole game's changed in VAs. It's actually complicated, and I'm going to share with you why it's so complicated. So most VAs are going to do two types of tasks. Like there's two categories for VAs. Either they're going to do your back end work or they're going to do frontline sales. And before you hire a VA, you have to clearly define what is the purpose you're hiring your VA for. If you don't have crystal clear purpose on why you're hiring a VA, don't do it. You see, there are two distinct different types of VAs, and you have to understand what you're signing up for and what you're signing up the VA for. This is mistake number one most wholesalers make. And so make sure you have clarity in the purpose of your VA. Now, option number one for back-end data work, they're phenomenal for this. Honestly, they're an integral part of our team. And that's where I really suggest you spend your focus on, especially if you're a newer wholesaler of a year or less, because a lot of people think they can use category number two and use them for front-end sales. What do I mean by that? Cold calling, running your text program, screening phone calls. I'm here to tell you that's usually a disaster. You see, you can't train a VA something that you don't actually know about. So if you signed up for some guru's course and they told you just hire 4 VAs and outsource your cold calling, and you've never done cold calling, you're setting yourself and the VA up for failure. And this is one of the most common problems I see in wholesaling when working with VAs. If you're a new wholesaler, a year or less, focus on back-end data work for your marketing, and that's where you're going to get the most traction from your VA. So let's dive in and let's start with the basics. How do we find a VA? Well, it's actually a simple internet search. So I'm going to give you 3 different sites you can go to, and you're going to be buried. There's going to be so many VAs, it's overwhelming. This is a little bit of the problem, and I'm going to explain why. So number one, you can go to Online Jobs PH. These are specific to Philippines VAs, and there is a ton of them. Now, full disclosure, I think you got to pay like $50 a month to be part of this site. And then basically you set up a screening process for VAs. And I'm here to tell you, it's the amount of VAs on the site is unbelievable. It almost sounds too good to be true. To be honest with you, I used this site a lot in the beginning. I don't use it nearly as much anymore because the problem is you're only designated to the Philippines area. And remember, you're in a worldwide global economy. Why would you limit yourself to the Philippines? But that's a great place to start. The second one is simply Fiverr. Fiverr is known for doing one job and being done. And you'll find a lot of VAs on here. And why I find Fiverr so valuable, because you can take one simple task, give a VA maybe you give them a code violation and ask them to sort it for you and give them a timeline and get the job done. And you have a set price, maybe it's 10 or 20 bucks, and see how they do. And if they do really good on that task, then you can discuss a part-time or a full-time employment. That's why I like Fiverr. It actually works because you can test drive the VA before you commit to a full-time commitment and find out you have a really bad VA. The third one, which is my least desirable one, is Upwork. We used to use this all the time. They recently changed their name to Upwork a couple years ago. The problem is you're trying to screen a VA for really, most of them are looking for full-time work, and you go through all this extensive stuff. You post the ad, you do interviews, you do voice recordings, everything else, only to find out they can't do simple tasks. So I prefer use like Fiverr or Online Jobs PH. But guys, There's so many search engines to do it. What I don't want you to use is use a private company that says, we'll find the VAs for you. That is a recipe for disaster. You need to have free range in the market and find the best VA that's going to fit the tasks you need for your wholesaling business. So start with those three and then you can work backwards from there. Do not use a dedicated agency because you're typically going to pay a higher fee and there's huge hooks in they get in with you. So make sure you have a freelance search for a VA. So the next part we have to talk about VAs is the geography of VAs. Like, why do I need to know the geography? Once again, we're looking for VAs all over the world. There's VAs in the United States that actually work very well. There's a lot of people that will work virtually if they understand what the task at hand is to do. So don't eliminate the US. I'm telling you, there is plenty of good VAs within the United States that love to work remotely because the job market is so much more competitive and rates have gone up. The US is actually a practical solution at this point in time. So let's start with the Philippines, where it all originated from. I'm going to give you the pros and cons of the Philippines. I will tell you the Philippines, they're wonderful for back-end work. Why is that? They're highly educated. Most people have their master's degree. Unbelievable. They're very, very hardworking people. Here's the challenge though with VAs from the Philippines. Number one, the Philippines area has a very poor internet service. They have rolling blackouts all the time, and it's not uncommon for them to be out sometimes multiple days at a time, which is really frustrating, especially if they're on the front end sales side, and you got to keep that in mind. Number two, it's a very poor country, meaning a lot of family members live in the house. And guys, I'm not passing judgment on anyone. I'm just giving you the facts. Most Philippines people that I've hired have roosters howling in the background. And I've gotten tons of complaints from my sellers on this. Even vendors, it is common to have roosters running around the house. And I haven't been there, but I'm just telling you, they are wonderful people, but you have to know what's going on with this. And they usually have fans running in the background because they don't have AC. You've got to know when you hire these people. The other thing that is challenging with Philippines hires is there is a huge time difference in the US. So although that time difference is perfect if they're doing back-end data work for your marketing, pulling lists, sorting data, stuff like that, that's awesome because think about this. They're doing it work at night for you while you're sleeping, and then you take that data, you do front-end sales with it, and then when you're done with the day, they're just waking up and they can work on all the other data you can do while you're sleeping. So from that point, it's extremely efficient. So depending on where you are in the United States, it can be anywhere from, I believe, 12 to 16-hour time difference. So if you hire them for front-end sales, you have to keep that in mind. Now, every Philippines VA will tell you they will work on US time. I'm here to tell you it is a hard commitment for them to do it. I've had very few actually follow through with it. Think about it. If you had to work on opposite schedules and do the midnight shift, you would probably suffer at some point. Two more cons with VAs from the Philippines. They have an extremely heavy accent. I'm not passing judgment. I'm just telling you the facts. And they know very little about the US culture. You cannot train an accent. I have tried. Some of them disguise it well, but for the most part, a lot of them have heavy accents, and it usually turns off your sellers when they hear a foreign person. They make instant judgment. I'm not doing it, but you have to understand that going into. And the Philippines is flooded with VAs. Unfortunately, most of them are extremely inexperienced, and they will take any job you give them, and there's no way to vet how many customers they're working on. They could have 40 or 50 wholesalers, realtors, whoever they're working for, and there's no way for you to vet that. And even if they commit to you full time, they'll still take the jobs. And then you find out why they can't get the work done or why you can't get a hold of them is because they're just taking every job they can and they overcommit. And for that reason, I am not a huge fan. I like the Philippines for back-end data work. I will never hire them for front-end sales because I've never, ever had it worked out. Next geographic area is India. The really cool thing about India is they are known for data. They're very good at data. They're highly educated. They're extremely smart people, and they speak very good English. They understand you can speak in English. The downside with India is obviously we have a time difference. They have a heavy accent just like Philippines. And for that reason, I typically keep them to back-end data. But their internet is much more reliable in the Philippines. So take that information and do what you want with it. India is wonderful for data, and they're very price competitive. Now, I'm going to introduce you to two more markets maybe you didn't know about that will help you if you ever bring a VA in on the sales world. So number one is Egypt. Yes, I said Egypt. Now, it's a little bit more favorable of a time zone, 3 or 4 hours plus closer to the United States, depending on where you are in the US, but they speak extremely fluent English, and and their accent is not very recognizable in the United States. So if you have the skill set and you want to hire them to maybe help you answer calls or do follow-ups or anything like that, Egypt is the place to go. Extremely reliable internet and extremely competitive rates. For this reason, I highly recommend look for VAs in this geographic zone if you're looking to do more of a sales position. That means they're talking to your sellers. And I saved the best one for last. My favorite market to go to for VA is South America. Think about this. The proximity to the United States is wonderful. You don't have to teach them about US culture because a lot of them flow back and forth from the United States all the time. So you don't have to overly educate them on like basements and decks and like different climate temperatures in the US. Most of them already know it. They understand the US culture, and that's a huge plus because you don't have to teach it. We talked about time zones. For the most part, South America is just below the United States, so they're almost on US time, and it works very, very favorable. Why? Because they can talk to your customers on US time without pulling a graveyard shift. That's a huge plus. Also, think about this. They're extremely fluent in English. You cannot even barely detect an accent, and most of them are bilingual in Spanish. So depending on what market you're in, this could be a huge plus to your team. Now, they're not the cheapest, but I got to be honest with you, for front-end sales, they are my favorite type of VA to get, because if you give them the right support, you clearly tell them what the mission is and you train them, I think they're the best VAs out there. They're going to cost you a little bit more, but guys, the name of the game is having people help you close and contact your motivated sellers. And if you're looking for a front-end person to help you with your load, South America is wonderful. I will add this. There's also a huge push in the Caribbean as well. So I don't have the details of the exact locations, but people in the Caribbean love to work remotely. Just make sure they have a reliable internet, check out their accent, and they're very favorable in US time zones, and they're familiar with US culture. So that would be another one I'll add to the list. So let's talk about training VAs, because a lot of people are like, okay, Rick, I found them. How the heck do I train them? And this is going to be very simple for you. A simple rule for hiring a VA, and this is my personal experience and my opinion. Others may disagree with me. Don't hire a VA unless you've done the task repetitively with success yourself. Why? How do you train someone if you have no idea how it works, how the data works, and how you convert it to a profit for your company? So many of you guys hire VAs and hope that they'll take over a task so you never have to do it. And I'm here to tell you, if you're a new wholesaler within your first year, do it yourself until you have success and you firmly understand it. Remember, walk a mile in a man's shoes. That's how you train them. You just can't hand somebody a new pair of shoes and expect to understand how to wear them, how to walk in them, or even how to run into them. You simply can't train what you don't know. Now, a lot of you are going to go, well, I'll just, there's a company, they train the VAs for it. It sounds so perfect. Once again, you're falling in the guru trap. If it sounds too perfect, think about it. You're being sold. They're just going to make a spread on what they charge their VA and what you make, and you're going to go through an endless cycle of VAs. And honestly, it's more effective and cheaper if you train your VAs on your own. So now that you know you need to walk a mile in someone's shoes before you train them, how long? Until you have success. So what you need to do is, the training is simple. You need to write what we call an SOP. It's a standard operating procedure, and you write a manual for every task you need to do. And you think, well, how hard can that be? You're going to be blown away of how much instruction you're going to give. Let me simplify this for you. Take that information. We're going to use the 80-20 rule. We use it differently in this as opposed to talking to motivated sellers. Is 80% of the information, you need to take the 20% that is most important, because your VA won't retain it. Take 20% that's critical to your success and train your VA into standard operating procedure. Rick, I've never wrote one. I don't know how to do it. Let me show you how it works. You have to dumb it down to the most basic core principles of what you're training. So your SOP, I want you to think about this. If you were to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich, you have to take every instruction and write it down and take the 20% of the most important. And you're going to be blown away on how many steps it takes to build a peanut butter sandwich. You got to take the bread out. You got to take 2 slices out. You've got to get a knife out. You got to get the peanut butter jar out. You got to get the jelly. So you talk about all the supplies. You talk about the applications and how to put it together. That's how you're going to write a standard operating procedure, and you're constantly going to be refining it. And after a while, you're going to get it just about right. And that is your template for training your VA. And if that VA doesn't work out, or that VA leaves you, or you have to fire them, boom, you can replace it. You have to create it like a system that is automatic. You have to start the painstaking process of writing an SOP. Peanut butter jelly example sandwich, 80-20 rule. Take 20% of the information that's most important and put that in your manual. You can't put everything in there, but you got to put the stuff in there that is critical to being successful for a VA. So now that you understand that, let me give you tools to step up your game to train VAs. Technology is amazing these days. Don't overlook it. Basically using Zoom, and you can use a software called Loom. It's made for 5-minute or less screen records, and you can train on your computer if you're showing them how to pull a list, how to sort it, how to categorize it, how to follow up with it. Both these tools are wonderful. Most VAs like to work in Loom. It's Loom. It's their preferred training software. So look it up. It's relatively cheap. Well worth the share. The other one is like, don't overlook YouTube. You can create a private YouTube channel and put all your trainings in there. It's 100% free. And guys, please, of all things, don't forget about the basics. Google. Google is wonderful. Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets. Game changer when dealing with the VAs. And most of these are free, or you can step up and get a business account and get 1 terabyte on it. Well worth it. One of the easiest ways to share your data and your information on it. And if you're going to do a timestamp, meaning you're going to have your VA check in, you can use softwares like Time Doctor. There's a million of them out there, 10 or 20 bucks, and they will screenshot everything your VA is doing, and it'll match the time, and you can find out what your VA is actually doing while they're working. I would never work with a VA without some sort of timestamp, because you can audit and find out what your VA is actually doing while they're working with you. Because if they're going to share multiple screens or stuff like that, you can kind of detect it. I highly recommend these tools for a VA. So I promised you at the end I was going to share the #1 reason why wholesalers typically fail with VAs. I'm here to tell you, here's the truth. Most wholesalers hire VA and they set them up to fail, because most wholesalers hire them and think it's like a cure-all for cure-all. You bought into the guru hype. Hire a VA, have them do everything for you. You sit on the beach. No, it just doesn't work that way. I've been in the business 21 years. I'm telling you, you've got to deep dive and understand your business. My recommendation is deep dive in your business for 2 years, or until you can't handle all the information, and have VAs take over back-end tasks, and then find the VAs that will help you with some of the front-end tasks. But I'm going to give you a warning with it. If you're going to hire a VA to do cold calls, you better make sure you have the budget and the capacity to train these people. #1, what do you mean by budget? You have to give them an incredible amount of volume. I heard a guru talking about hire 4 VAs. The cost to hire 4 VAs, whatever you pay them, if it's $6 or $8 an hour, that's the cheap part. Think about how much data you need: 30, 50, 100,000 pieces of data. By the time you skip trace it, sort it, do all that stuff, it's very expensive. Do the math equation on it and understand you can only hire VAs to do cold call if you know how to train them, you know how to follow up with them, which is going to take a huge dedication of time from you, the wholesaler. And if you don't have that time and you can't provide them the volume, you will fail with the VAs. I've done this personally, guys. I'm telling you from experience. If you think they're going to fix your sales problem and you're failing at sales right now, meaning talking with motivated sellers, they're only going to make it worse. If you're highly successful at cold calls, you know what you're doing. Zach made at least 300,000 cold calls till we even brought in a cold calling team. Why? He knew how to manage the numbers, he knew how to train them, and he knew how to look at the KPIs. If you've never done it before, you're going to set yourself up for massive failure. My recommendation as a newer wholesaler, a year or less, use VAs for back-end marketing data. It's going to catapult your ability to talk to motivated sellers. If you think you could just swap it out and have a VA do everything, you're going to set yourself up for failure. I don't want you to fail. That's why I'm shooting this video. So guys, stop looking at cheap rates for VAs and look at how you can set up a plan with a standard operating procedure, the training, all the tools I've shared with you, so you can actually grow and explode your wholesaling business. I hope you got value from this video. Do me a favor. Let me know in the comments if you're going to use the tips I shared with you on how to find and train your VAs. And if you got value from this video, do me a favor. Make sure you smash that like button. You hit that subscribe notification button to continue to receive the best up-to-date information on wholesaling today. Guys, this is Rick Ginn, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.